The following is a presentation of Chandler Christian Church in Chandler, Arizona. For more information, please go to chandlercc.org.
When it comes to our finances, each of us are heading in a certain direction. The problem is, most of us don't know which direction that actually is. The average American with a credit file has more than $16,000 worth of debt. And that's not even including mortgages. Typical American has 13 credit obligations. These include department store cards, gas cards, bank cards, auto loans, student loans, mortgage loans. Typical young adult household now spends 24% of their income on debt payment. That means a quarter of their income is spent on payments from yesterday. Total U.S. consumer debt, not including mortgages, reached $2.55 trillion in 2007. Here's the kicker though. 90% of Americans surveyed believe that they have the same amount or less debt than the typical American. I'm not talking about you though. You know, at some point, if you find yourself at the bottom of a hole, it's time to stop digging.
Did you notice that looked a lot like a grave that he was digging? I think there's a reason for that, Take your outlines out as we talk about the second step on this road to financial freedom, and that is bondage, the bondage to debt that we have. One day I heard about an employee who went to go visit his boss. He asked his boss for a raise. He said, I need to find out if the company was going to give me one because I've got several other major corporations that are after me. And the boss said, well, what other corporations are after you? And he said, the electric company, the credit card company, the gas company, the mortgage company. And we can chuckle at that, but when it comes to debt, it's really no laughing matter. And that's why we're doing these ABCs of financial freedom, because we want each one of us to understand how to use the funds that God provides to us in God's way and in God's plan. Now, last week we talked about the attitude about finances. The letter A, is the attitude that we have about finances. And this means that we literally, if we go in with the A theme, the right attitude in finances means that we need to be accepting of the sovereignty of God. We need to accept the sovereignty of God, that God's large and in charge. He's in charge of everything. He owns it all. It's all His, and we need to acknowledge that and admit that and recognize that. If we're going to have the right attitude about finances, it means that we need to be admitting our need and asking God for help. We need to admit our need. God, we need you. We need your instruction, your guidance, your care. We ask you for your help, your blessing in this aspect of our lives. And if we're going to have the right attitude for finance, that means that we need to be adapting our ways of handling finances to His ways in everything. We need to be adapting our ways of handling our finances to His ways in every aspect of our life. That's what it means to have the right attitude. And if we will do this, God promises His blessing. You say, well, Pastor, how do you know that? Well, I know that because of the verse that we ended last week's message with. Psalm 84, verse 11, which says this, the Lord your God is our light and our protector. He gives us grace and glory. Read aloud with me, would you? Out loud. Here we go. No good thing will the Lord withhold from those who do what is right. No good thing will the Lord withhold from those who do what is right. So the first step on the road to financial freedom is our attitude. The second step of the road to financial freedom is breaking the bondage of debt. The letter B is bondage, breaking the bondage of debt. Now, Americans are addicted to debt. That also includes most Christians. Most believers have the same debt load as those who do not profess a relationship with Christ. And we ought to know better. We ought to know better. Debt's an insidious trap. It's kind of like, the guy who says, no, I'm going to take a little of this. It won't hurt you. It won't be a problem. And you take a little of it, and before long you want a little bit more, and then you turn around and there's a needle stuck in your arm and you're hooked. And we say, I don't see any way I can get out of this. And we're addicted to debt. David Rosenberg, the chief economist for Gluskin, Sheff and Associates out of Toronto, says this. The ratio of household debt to income, I'll wait for that to come up. It's coming? Hello? All right, here we go. The ratio of household debt to income stood at 119% in the first quarter, this is 2008, according to federal data. While that's down from 129% in 2007, it's still above the 30-year average of 90%. This was recorded in Bloomberg's newsletter. And in other words, what he's saying is the rate of household income to debt is 119%. Some of your eyes are glassed over. You didn't do well in economics either when you were studying. Let me simplify that for you. We are in deep trouble. And the trouble is that we owe more than we earn. And that is an aspect of failure. Americans are living way beyond their means. And let me put this in perspective for you with a chart. This compares the 1950s to 2009. In the 1950s, the average household saved 12%. The savings rate was 12%. In 2009, the average household saves less than 3%. You say, well, wow, 3%, that's not very much. No, but let me tell you, it's better than in 2005. In 2005, 2006, the savings per household was 0. Today, it's less than 2%. In the 1950s, there averaged over that period of time less than 100,000 bankruptcies a year. In the year 2009, there were greater than 1.1 million bankruptcies in the United States. In fact, most economists will tell you that people are using bankruptcy as a way to just literally escape the debt. They're using it as a tool. I'll earn this much credit, and then I'll do bankruptcy. In the 1950s, the number of credit cards per person was 0. You say, because there weren't any. You're right, there weren't any. In 2009, the average American, the average person has greater than 4 credit cards. The total credit card debt in the 1950s was 0. The total credit card debt in 2009 is $957.3 billion. The household credit card debt in the 1950s was 0. The average household credit card debt in America today in 2009 is $15,788 per household. Credit card debt. Not mortgage, not car. Not student loans. Credit card debt. Some of you are going, I wish mine was that low. The average charitable giving in 1950s averaged 6%, all charitable contributions. In 2009, the average charitable contribution for all sources was 2.6%, which is up, by the way, from a year ago. The average charitable giving to churches is 2.1%. That means the average believer gives just a little more than 2% of their income to God's work. You say, well, how does this factor into families? Well, as a manifestation, in 1950s, the average was 385,000 divorces per year. In 2009, there were 1,650,750 divorces. You say, well, is that all attributed? No, it's not. But you also realize there are a lot of families that are living together and are cohabitating outside of God's plan and aren't married. So when they split up, that doesn't show in statistics. But I will tell you this, that the number one cause of marital dissatisfaction in America today is arguments over finances. Number one thing, not sex, not job, not kids, not in-laws, money. And it's a direct correlation. We as individuals are in deep, deep trouble. And our nation is in deep trouble.